So, we can go up and down our list of dwarves here using the arrow keys again. And before we assign jobs, something I like to do is you can actually view a little bit more detailed information about each of them. If you look down here at the bottom of the screen, some of the options, if you hit V to view, which we'll do on our first dwarf here, the highlighted one, you can see some more information. This screen will, show you what they look like, well, describe what they look like, I should say, and some of their strengths and weaknesses. So this one's a boy, 74 years old. It tells you when they're born. It gives you kind of like a catchphrase for each dwarf here. Some details here in the green. He's rarely sick and he's tough, but he's very slow to heal. Some of these can have a pretty large effect on what job you tell them to do. Like, sometimes you'll get ones that are described as being cowards, or they're really flimsy and weak, and you don't want to make a flimsy, coward, weak dwarf a warrior or something like a miner, because they're not going to do too well. So this guy's rarely sick and tough, but he's slow to heal. Has little difficulty with words and meager kinesthetic sense. Blah blah blah. So for you and on your level, hit escape to go back to this screen. I would actually go through each of those dwarves, hit V to view them, and then before you decide on what job you want to give them, kind of pick skills that are relevant. I would pick an intelligent dwarf with a lot of patience or something like that to be the doctor or expedition leader, someone who's good with words. It doesn't. So you could argue it wouldn't be absolutely necessary, but it'll be better in the end if you actually want to, try to make that fortress last as long as you can. For the sake of time here, I'm just going to randomly assign jobs to each of these 7 dwarves. Now, our first dwarf, who has 10 available skill points, we're going to make a miner. So if we hit right on our arrow key, now, if you look at the bottom of the screen, the plus and minus on our numpad will add or subtract skill points. There's a base of 5, none of them can go lower than that, but 5 means they are not whatever skill that is, so he is currently not a miner. We're going to raise this fairly high. We'll do 9 to be a skilled miner. We'll also go down and take a look through some of these other ones. Let's do 1 in masonry, 1 in engraving. Masonry is obviously making stuff out of stone, and engraving is pretty relevant to being a miner. Now later on, once you get more dwarves, you're going to have a dwarf that's specifically a mason and one that's specifically a miner. Right now, because we only start out with 7, Actually, I take that back. Let's not put any in masonry, because once we start our game, our miners are only ever going to mine. That's all we want them to do, because if they're doing other things, nothing's ever going to get done. So we'll put some in engraving just in case. That's like smoothing out stone walls and floors and putting like artwork into the stone. So I feel like that's kind of relevant, and they might do that every now and then, but that's about it. So we can actually take our miner up again to 10. And let me take a look through the rest of the list here. We'll go to the very bottom. Let's see. We'll put some in discipline so they don't just do whatever they want at times, or if they get scared and stuff like that. And we'll also put some in concentration to help them focus a little bit better. So we have 2 in concentration, 2 in discipline, so they're adequate at both of those skills. Let's go all the way back to the top. And they are proficient miner and a novice engraver. It's a pretty good skill set. You could argue what other, what I call secondary skills that you would like. You definitely want to have the majority of them in mining, because that's going to be his main job. We'll hit left to go back over to this. And if we look at our options at the bottom again, we're going to hit C to customize. Now what this does is it brings up a menu to customize their nickname if you want them called something else, or customize their profession name. And to keep track of our dwarves, we're going to hit P to customize their profession name, which I'm going to call a miner. Hit enter with done, and then hit escape. And now we'll see that our miner is actually labeled a miner, and he has 0 skill points left to assign. So we're going to go down the list and assign the rest of these as well. We want 2 miners, so let's go back. We're going to do the same thing again. Raise mining to 10. We'll put 1 in engraving. Two in discipline, 2 in concentration. We're going to name his profession again. P, miner. Escape when done. So we have our 2 miners. You can check them off the list. Next, we're going to want a blacksmith. So we're going to go right again. We'll go back to the top. So there's different types of smiths. We have a weaponsmith, an armorsmith, and a metalsmith. Now, weaponsmiths obviously make weapons, armorsmiths make armor, and metalsmiths are just for general blacksmithing needs. So we're going to make his highest skills in both weaponsmithing and armorsmithing. And then we'll put our last 2 in metalsmithing. And you know what? Let's actually take 1 out of each of those, so we can put them in discipline and concentration like we did our miners as well. We'll name his profession. And there we have it. Next will be our farmer. Let's go back to the top. Now I know there's a farmer option. I always get confused. It's not called farming, it's called growing. So we're going to want to make that our highest primary skill. We'll take that to about an 8. You know what, let's even do a 9. Now, herbalist refers to actually harvesting plants that you grow and are either found in the wilderness. So we'll raise that a couple points. Let's make that our secondary. We'll even put 3 in that. And next, again, let's go to the bottom and put some into discipline and concentration. And we'll name him Farmer. Let's go down to our next dwarf. And now we need our warrior, expedition leader, and doctor. So we'll go with our warrior first. Let's go back to our skill set. And we'll go up a little bit. It's fairly close to the bottom of the skills, so if we go to the very bottom, you see it's teacher. We're going to go up until we see some combat skills. And they start about right here. Now you can specify which weapon they're proficient with. There's axes, swords, maces, hammers, spears, crossbows. You can also have wrestlers, you know, they'll grapple enemies, which is good if you don't want to be as lethal, but they can still break bones and stuff. So I'm going to recommend you make your first warrior an axeman or an axe dwarf in this particular circumstance, because axes can double as, well, you use the same axes in combat as you would to chop down trees, and it's here in a few minutes we're going to choose our equipment that we take with us, and you don't want to have to waste money on an extra weapon that can only be used for combat. So if we take axes with us, we can use them for chopping down trees and for killing peeps if they roll up on your dwarves. So we want to make axeman our primary skill. Let's go up to about an 8. You're a competent axeman. We want to go down. You want to be a shield user, so we'll put 2 in that. You also want to be an adequate armor user, 2 in that as well. We'll put 1 in fighting. Now, you can either choose to use shields or to dodge. Dodging, you won't need a shield, so we're not going to put any in that necessarily. And let's put 1 more in fighting. Or no, I take that back. Let's go to the bottom and do discipline and concentration again. 1 in each. So we have 1 in concentration, 1 in discipline, 1 in fighting, 2 in armor user, 2 in shield user, and several in our axeman, so he'll be pretty good with an axe. So now let's go back over here. We'll customize him and name his profession as well. Axe Dwarf. Whoops. Axe Dwarf. There we go. Now let's make our doctor an expedition leader. So, if we go down the list, or up the list at this point, since we're still in and around our fighting skills, or it might actually be down, sorry. There's skills related to being a doctor. Here they are, yes, it was down from where we were. Now starting at wound dresser, it goes all the way down, so we have wound dresser, diagnostician, surgeon, bone doctor, suture, and that's about it. So I like to put a little bit in each. We'll put 1 or 2 in wound dresser. Diagnostician, you kind of want to have the highest because that's his ability to determine what needs to be done. So if you have low diagnostician, they'll look at it and be like, let's put a splint on that cut, yo, because I don't really know what to do. So we'll put 3 in that. Oh, sorry. We'll put 1 in surgeon, 1 in boat doctor, and 1 in suture. And then we'll go down again. We'll put 1 in concentration. Let's actually go ahead and put 2 in concentration. And then he will be our doctor. Now you can name these whatever you want. I like to keep it pretty straightforward so you actually know what they are in game. We'll go to our next one, which will be our expedition leader. So let's go to the right. You want to make his leading skills fairly high. So let's put all the way up to 9. He's a skilled leader. We'll go up. We'll put 1 in conversationalist. And then we're also going to put we'll put 1 in judge of intent. He can appraise items. This is important for trading, organizing, and record keeping, which is keeping track of your items. We'll go ahead and put 2 in record keeping. Well, trying to put 2 in record keeping. Okay. What's going on? I reached my maximum number of points I can spend here. So this is pretty good. You know, leader, conversationalist. The most important is definitely leader and record keeping and judge of intent, I would say, and appraising. And one thing I did forget to do, and I'm going to go back and change here. Let's go back to our warrior. Now, we're going to take 1 out of axeman and 1 out of our armor user to put in teacher and leader. Now these are important. So we'll put 1 in leading and 1 in teaching. Actually, I think it's just leading. But when you have warriors, you can set them to train in a barracks. And the warrior that has the highest skill, it'll teach the other warriors, kind of, you can think of it, how to fight. And they'll actually do sparring training with each other, which will level them up a little bit quicker. If no one has the leading skill developed, they're all going to do single combat, you know, like practices and stuff. They'll just train by themselves and do like kata and things you can think of. So it's a good idea to give whatever warrior you start out with some leading abilities. That way when you make other warriors, he can teach the other ones and it'll go a little bit quicker. So let's go back to our dwarves over here. We forgot to name our expedition leader, so we'll customize him really quick. Expedition leader. You don't want to make the name too long, so for really long names you can just shorten them up. That way you won't have these giant words going across your screen. Alright, so now we can see some more options down at the bottom here. Let's go to tab for our items. Now, it starts you out with certain items. I'm going to be deleting a couple because they're just not necessary, and it'll give us some money to spend on other things that we need. To our left is a list of the items that we have, their pricing, how much they cost here, and the amount here of each we have. So we have 2 copper picks, and both of those copper picks together cost 44 monies or points down here at the bottom. This is how many points we currently have left, our pool of points that we can spend on things. So once we get rid of some stuff here in our list to the left, we'll have a little bit more points. So you don't really need a step ladder. That's a waste of money, especially if you're starting out around trees, because they're super easy to make. You can just cut down some trees and make that, and that's a waste of points. So we're going to get rid of that. And again, it's plus and minus to add, as you can see down here. So we're going to hit minus. That'll give us back 50 points. We'll take away the wheelbarrow as well. It's a very useful item, but like I said, we're starting out near trees, so we can make one pretty much first 5 minutes if we need it. So take that away, another 50 points. Crutches are a good idea to have, but again, can be made out of wood. So let's start out with 2. Why not? Splints, we'll start out with 2. And buckets, we'll start out with 1. All of those can be made from wood very easy. Now, leather quivers are a really good idea to start out with, because one of the easiest and most effective dwarves you can make for combat are crossbow dwarves. And they can stay back, you know, ammunition isn't that hard to produce. But the only thing that's mildly difficult to acquire is the quivers to keep your arrows in, which is kind of hard to get. You have to kill an animal, skin it, and turn it into leather and make it into an item. So I always like to start out with some quivers. 3 is a good idea. It's not that expensive, so we'll start out with 3 horse leather quivers. That's just the ones it gave us. You can literally have leather made out of everything from like dingoes to giant mole rats to, you know, you name it. So we'll keep those. We have 3 pigtail ropes. Pigtails are a plant in the game, so this is like a plant fiber rope. Let's we'll keep 3, sure. Bags you can store stuff in. We're only going to start out with 3. You can store things in barrels as well, which is probably going to be the main thing we're using. Crates you can make out of wood. So we'll keep 3 bags. Cloth. We'll start out with like 3 cloth. And thread. Thread is used to make cloth. One of the primary plants we're going to be harvesting is going to give us pigtail fibers, which we can use to turn into cloth, so it's not that important to start out with some. You're not really going to need it. I mean, you can have it if you want. It might make it a little bit easier, but I'd rather spend my points elsewhere. Now, plump helmets. This is a very important plant and pretty much going to be the staple of your food production. Plump helmets is a plant that you grow underground, so you'll make it inside your fort on any type of soil. And you can either eat the plant raw, or you can turn it into a beer or a wine or an ale. And so this is a very good plant to have. You can grow it and it serves both food and drink purposes. Your dwarves, you can argue, need alcohol. It's like they'll still do things without it, but they become very discontent and they'll fight against you sometimes and they'll get depressed. So You always need alcohol. If they don't have alcohol, they'll drink water, of course, but they're not going to be happy about it. So never run out of alcohol and never run out of food. Plump helmets can be used for both. So we're actually going to start out with a few more plump helmets. We'll start out with 25, let's say. We have our cave fish here. Sure, we'll start out with about... let's keep it at 15, since we have some plump helmets. Prepared horse intestines. Sure, why not? Start out with 2 types of meat. You can go with cave fish and something else. I'm just going to use the default for the sake of time that it happened to randomly generate for us. So, horse intestines. Dimple cups is another type of plant. We don't need those. Rock nuts, we don't need those either. That's another type of plant. We don't need sweet pods either. Some of those can be turned into drink and stuff, but cave wheat, we don't really need that either. Pigtails. So our 2 most important plants, pigtails and plump helmets. Pigtails is what we're going to be using to make cloth and stuff out of. So we'll start out with, and these are the seeds specifically, not the plant. So we'll do about 15, let's do 20 pigtail seeds. And plump helmet spawn are you can think of as the seeds for the plump helmets. And we'll go ahead and start out with 20 of those as well. Now here's our alcohol. We have rum, beer, and ale. 20 of each. Go ahead and take 1 to like 30. Let's go beer. And the other 2 we'll take to 25. That way it'll give us a good supply of alcohol starting out. You always want 1 iron anvil, of course. We're going to start out with copper battle axes. Now remember, like I said, these axes will be used for chopping down trees and can be used as combat, so it's a good idea to start out with at least 2. And we want 2 copper picks as well because we have 2 miners, and those are specifically used for mining. Now we can add more items here as well. We're going to go over to the list here, and on the right is all the different animals that you can choose to bring along with you. I like to take 1 set of dogs, a male and a female, because then they'll reproduce and you can get more. And they can be used as like watchdogs. You can train them for hunting. You can turn them into like combat dogs and everything. So we'll start out with 1 female dog. And we'll start out with 1 male dog. We'll also start out with 1 female cat and 1 male cat. Now cats aren't really necessary, but they help, you know, kill vermin and stuff in and around your fortress. So they're pretty cool to have around, and I also like cats, so why the hell not? Now, you can choose to start out with cows, but it's kind of sketchy because they can die fairly easy. I don't want to say fairly easy, but you know, they can become targets of like monsters and stuff. If they reproduce, you know, it's a really good source of supplies. You know, you get like milk, butter, you know, skins. You can, you know, but we are going to start. We're going to go down the list here with turkeys. Now, turkeys and hens are pretty similar, or turkeys and chickens. I apologize. Turkeys and chickens are both pretty much the same thing in this game. They both produce eggs, which you can eat or let them hatch and you'll have more turkeys and or chickens. But the difference is, turkeys will give you more meat in this game. So if you slaughter them, you'll get more food out of it. So I always choose to start with turkeys. You're going to want 2 turkey hens. I'd say 3 turkey hens and 2 turkey gobblers, because those 2, you know, it's always better to have more females. That way they'll produce more eggs. And we'll go down. So we got our 3 turkey hens, 2 turkey gobblers, 1 dog female, 1 dog male, 1 male cat, and 1 female cat. Now we have 63 points left. I'm sure I'm going to forget something to add to this list, but this is a pretty good starting list. You always have to make sure you have your picks, your axes, your anvil, a good supply of ale, You want your farming supplies, so you want your seeds for your two main plants, your plump helmets, and your pigtails. It's always a good idea to have at least 2 different types of food, or in this case we have 3. So I guess I should say 2 types of meat. We have our prepared horse intestines and our cave fish, and then our plump helmets, which is you can eat them, and then it'll also give us more plump helmet seeds to grow later on. We got some cloth, thread, ropes, good things to start out with. You want your leather quivers, buckets, splints, crutches. And because we have a little bit extra money, let's go ahead and start out with a few more plump helmets, because that's always just good to have. So we'll take it up to 30. And just to double check, we can hit N down here at the bottom of the screen to see a list of items in the game that we can add. Now use your arrow keys and you can go up and down the selections here to add different things. And just because leather is kind of hard to come by, let's start out with some leather as well. Some wombat leather because it's cheap. So we're back to our list here. Let's get as many of those as we can get. Alright, 8. Alright, and some of the final options here, if you want to fool with it, it's not really necessary I guess, is you can name your group of dwarves, choose the symbol of your civilization or expedition group, and name your fortress. So first, let's name our group of dwarves here. So the randomly generated one is the Crypts of Justifying, and it tells you what it is in Dwarvish as well, so Momu's Ilnid. Now you can hit R for random names, clear, select, you can even choose your own. This can get, I don't want to say complicated, but these are the different, so you can change the front compound, which is the, you know, the crypt in this situation. The rear compound, you know, the and of, x, hyphen. You can actually make the names pretty good, so you can go through random names and see some different ones if you don't like the one it gives you. I usually like to name mine, but we're just going to use a random one for now. The skinny mechanisms, sure, we'll go with that. So hit escape when you're done and you've found a name that you like for your expedition group. Let's also hit F to name our fortress. Now, keep in mind, these options down here can be lowercase letters or capital. So if you're hitting G and you're like, hey bro, why can't I name my group? Well, it's a capital G, so just remember that. So let's hit capital F to name our fortress as well, the same way we named our dwarves. So the randomly generated name for our fortress is Trampled Guilds, and it gives the dwarvish name of that. And you can change it the same way you did the group name. So we can hit a couple random times. Granite Ball, why the heck not? Let's go with Granite Ball. That's going to be our fortress name. And hit escape when we're done. And now, we're done picking our items and supplies for our fortress. We have our animals. We have specified professions for all of our dwarves and assign them their respective skills. So now we're ready to go. Now, if you want to make any last minute changes or anything, I would recommend doing it now, because this is kind of like the last time to do that. You might want to like write down a list. I did not for choosing items, but I'm pretty sure I have everything I need. We might run into something later on in the tutorial that I forgot, but it shouldn't be anything too serious. You can actually save this loadout once you create it with the S button if you know you like what you have here and all the items you pick. That way every time you start a new level you don't have to go through and pick all these options again. But dwarves are going to be different every time, so it's probably, you could argue, a good idea to do it every time you do it. So now, let's hit E to embark on our journey here. Are you sure you want to embark? And it tells you whether or not you have any points remaining to spend on things. We only got 3. Can't really do much with that, so let's hit enter for I'm ready. And again, this can take a few minutes. Apologize for that. I'm on my trusty laptop here, so might not have the same processing power as a heavy-duty desktop like some of you might be having. Gosh, I can't even talk. But this shouldn't even take but a few minutes. And here we go. This is a little intro it gives you once you create your fortress. You have arrived after a journey from the mountain homes into the forbidding wilderness beyond. Your harsh trek has finally ended. Your part of a 7 is to make an outpost for the glory of all of insert your respective dwarven civilization there. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. There are almost no supplies left, but with stout labor comes sustenance, whether by bolt, plow, or hook. Provide for your dwarves. You are expecting a supply of caravan just before winter entombs you, but it is spring now, enough time to delve secure lodgings ere the dingo men get hungry. Well, that's good to know. There's friggin' dingo men around here. Alright, a new chapter of Dwarven history begins here at this place, and it'll have your fortress name and the translation. Strike the earth. So let's hit enter again. And here is the start out zone of our starting location. We're going to hit space to pause the game at this point. And thank you for watching the first part of this tutorial video. Please continue on to the next videos if you would like to continue learning what to do next. And hopefully you've learned quite a bit. See you later.